Hey, here I am sitting beside a beautiful, marvelous piece of engineering. That's an E46 that's unfortunately requiring one of these guys. So let's get into it. I'm actually going to be putting this $40 box that is remote controlled into this car, so stay tuned to find out why. But Max, why would you need a fire extinguisher? I mean, it's good to have one, but why does this car need one? Of course, with an E46 having cooling issues and oil leaking issues, there's one issue that is quite literally detrimental to this car, especially if you park in a garage. Our favorite light control module. You see, back in early 2000s, BMW really cooked with this one, quite literally. There are 4 power wires from a positive terminal that are going into this box. The worst part about it is the fact that they're continuous. Even when the key is off, the module is still powered on. Now, I know you may say, well, this is only affecting cars that have the automatic headlights, or the ones that have the plugged sunroofs, or the ones that have the sunroofs. Unfortunately, this affects all of them. They end up rusting, they end up corroding, and they end up catching fire. Your car quite literally can catch on fire spontaneously while being entirely turned off. In this video, I am going to talk about the removal of the module. We're going to be inspecting the module. We're going to be reinstalling the module. And I'm also going to be obviously cleaning it. And then I'm going to proposition to you an idea that I'm going to be putting into this car, as well as making this video. It takes about a minute or so to remove this thing, so I strongly encourage you to look at it. One of the most important things before you start touching the battery is to verify that your trunk works with a key, because the trunk is electric, and if you mess up with anything to do with the battery, you will be basically unable to open your trunk. You can go through the inside, but verify that your key works first. Simply put it in and voila, it opens. The tools that you're going to be needing for this project, we're going to be starting off with a lot of light. Very important to have as much light as you can get. That's why I'm also going to be using a headlamp, a flat head, because I don't have a plastic removal tool with me. I'm going to be using some flathead. This is also going to come helpful when we're going to disassemble the module, and I'm going to be using a little bit of a cloth in order to not damage the actual trim piece. We're going to be using a to remove the control module. We're going to need a 10 mil with an extension, and as well as a ratchet in order to remove the negative terminal off the battery. The extension just makes it 1,000 times easier. Also, I'm going to be using a brake clean. This guy I'm going to be using for the actual PCB board in order to clean any dirt, residue, dust, all that good stuff. I've seen people use WD-40 as well. The most important thing is to make sure that you dry off the PCB before you go forward. And last but not least, on this side, I'm going to be also using the gloves when I'm working with the PCB board, because I want to avoid any static electricity going into the board. Now, moving on to actually the box component part. When you open the box, if you get the same one, there's honestly only 2 kinds that I was able to find on Amazon. You're going to be greeted with a lovely bag that the box was actually in. You're going to have 2 remotes here, which I was quite pleased with. Then you're going to be met with a manual, and as well as a foam piece to put on the back and a washer. Now, the reason I have these guys here is because you will need a 13 and a 14 mil, and you will need a hex key. That this is a 3/16 or a 5 millimeter hex key. The reason I need a hex key is because with the way I'm going to make this box work is I'm going to be unscrewing 2 of these bolts and just flipping this whole entire assembly upside down and screwing it back in. If you don't have a 13 or a 14, I do know 13 can be quite specific, you can just use an adjustable wrench. That is it, and let's get started. Before we're going to get started with the interior, removing the module, we need to make sure that we disconnect the battery because it is a live module. We want to just make sure that we're safe. In order to disconnect your negative terminal from the battery, we're going to lift this carpet up, and usually you would have 2 clips here that you could use a flathead screwdriver to remove. I don't have them, so then all you do is you just literally lift this out, and that's it. And this is where you use your 10 mil to just undo this bolt right here. You just undo it a little bit until it's loose, and then you're going to be able to slide off the negative terminal easily. Now, very important to be mindful of how you're putting the terminal, because it can touch onto the car and complete the circuit again. What I like to do, put the cover back in, and that way I know for sure that it's not going to by accident bend itself back onto the terminal or onto the body. The only piece that's going to be basically coming out is this trim piece, and this is where I'm going to grab a flathead screwdriver, wrap it in my cloth, and just gently go under it Literally just give it a little tuck. Usually they do get quite stuck, so you might have to just go under here a little bit as well. Kind of pull it out. Try to put your finger in there or the cloth, however, and just pry it out. And that's it. These guys usually stay in. Sometimes they come out, but that's it. This is the access to your light control module. With the Phillips screw now, there's only one screw right here. All we're gonna do is just unscrew it. There we go. That's it. I'm gonna put in a cup holder so I do not lose it. The only thing that's left to do now is just to pull it out. Now, when you pull it out, what you want to do is the way it's facing is how you want to pull it out. Not just straight out, not straight up, but the way that it looks is how you want to basically pull it out. So it's gonna come out and you will feel a little bit of resistance. Don't be shy. Now, at the end here, there is a plug and it'll feel like it's not really coming out. Believe me, there is some slack to it. You can actually pull out the entire thing. Now here, this tab right here, if it was never touched before, it will be on if it was never touched. A lot of the times they do end up being broken. All you're gonna do is just push on the tab and this guy, the white one, is gonna pull over it, pull down. And as you're pulling it down, the plug will literally come right off by itself. And that's it. That's the removal of the module. All right, now that we have our module ready to disassemble and clean, first of all, I'm going to put on some gloves because I am going to work with a board and I just want to ensure I don't generate any electricity that can fry the board. Very important thing, so you do need one of these bad boys coated if you do get a new one. Before we begin, we want to look at it visually, inspect it outside. We want to make sure that this plug in here, the contacts are clean, there's no corrosion. I will put up some photos that I find of corroded modules and what to look out for. Now our front plate is going to come off, and the way it comes off is there's one little push tab in here and one little push tab right here. Don't worry about the back one yet, the smaller one, that's for later, but the little push tab here and the little push tab right here. Now, it will be a little tricky because this whole front panel needs to come off, and with age, it does get a little stuck. So don't be shy with it. Also be mindful, be very careful when you do pull it out. There is a ribbon cable right in here that we will have to disconnect. I'm going to grab my flat head and I'm going to press like this. I'm going to just open it a tiny bit so it doesn't click back, and then I'm going to press this one as well. Now it will be a little sticky, so don't be shy. Oh, there it is. Now that it opened, I'm going to slide it very carefully out, and then that ribbon cable is right there. And I'm simply going to slide that plug out. There we go. And that's it. This is your front panel. The ribbon cable is just on the bottom. The plug plugs in like this. This guy we're also going to open up and look at in a little bit. Now that we have this piece of the module, in order to remove this protective plastic, this is where we are going to look at our small little tabs. And all we do is the same thing. We press them to release, clicking them back in, and there we go. Now the orientation of it, just remember, this is the back side where your part number is and everything. So it goes in directly exactly like this over the cable. This is the board. Surprisingly, there is nothing that's holding this board in. It's free to come out. However, this is the most trickiest part, and the scariest part, I guess, is where we actually have to remove the board. What I found works, this board will be quite stuck, so be prepared for that. Now, what I found sort of works is, so because mine has been out, it's quite easy to pull out now. What I found works is if you push on this piece of plastic right here, but you have to make sure that you're not pushing the plastic in and you're not hitting the actual board to the plastic casing. You want to make sure that that plastic is out, and how you can make sure is if you grab with your finger and you just pull on this tab right here, you can see it lifts up, and when that's lifted up, you can put your finger there and kind of give it a couple presses in there in order for the board to slide right out. Another trick is to grab your flathead and also wedge it in the back here, but very careful, very, very careful. The best way to do it is you grab the board you grab your screwdriver, put it in, controlled, okay? You want to be controlled with it. You don't want to just shove it in there. You will break the board. And you try and twist it, and that can force the board out. I found that very helpful with this board in particular. Or you can also use sort of a prying technique, where if you grab a screwdriver, when you wedge it in the back, you can hold it, and then you can use your thumb and press against the board again while you're giving pressure here in order for the board to come out. Basically, the best way to pull it out is focusing on this plug right here. Just comes right out. Now that the board is finally out, you're ready to look at it and inspect it. I'm not a professional PCB expert by any means. This is more of just an educational video. You will see a little coating on it. It looks matte, and that is a protective coating that's applied at the factory. As you can see, there's a little bit of bubbling right here. Again, that's just the coating, so don't be alarmed. When I'm looking at the board, what I want to make sure is that all the contacts are still present. There's no corrosion on the contacts. There's no significant water damage on the contacts. You really, really want to make sure that you look at every single piece of the board. So this is the reason why they catch fire is, let's say you have a corrosion between certain elements, they short out, and because there's continuous power, they quite literally catch on fire. Another important thing is to look at your board at a different angle when you're expecting it. Every angle should be different. When I look straight at it, I cannot tell at all. But if I look at an angle, at a slight angle, I can see there's discoloration right here and right here. You can just look at it and look at every single, really spend time with this. Since the board is out, you have nowhere to rush. Really spend time with it, looking at this board. In order to clean the board, I am going to use some brake clean. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to lightly spray it very gently. There we go. The reason I'm using brake clean is because it evaporates, and that's how I can be sure that nothing will end up staying on the actual board. We're going to focus on this little guy now. Now, the way that the rear cap pops off, it literally just pops off. There is nothing that's holding the cap in except some hopes and dreams from BMW, and obviously these little plastic connectors. Here is a T10 that we have here. With the T10, we're going to open up this board. Just unscrew that. Grab the screw. And now when we remove the board is actually held in. I will just bend this plastic out a little bit. Start from the bottom here. The way that we're gonna open it is I'm going to focus on the two bottom tabs first, and then I'm going to focus on this tab just because it was not sticking out as much as this tab. So what I did is I took this first tab, then second tab, third, and then fourth. I'm actually going to turn it upside down while it's still together, and I'm going to lift it up. There you go. So all we have here is just your button and your wheel, and as well as your turning knob. Again, we're going to inspect everything for corrosion, looking at the overall health of the PCB. I am gonna hold this wheel and the button when I turn it over. And again, just looking at it. You can also use some brake clean again to spray on it, and then just wipe it off clean. And now all we need to do is just assemble it back. Put this back on and make sure all of these tabs clip in. And then we're gonna put the T10 back in. Although these are not as notorious to go, because we are doing the comprehensive clean and inspection, very important to spend your time. Now this rear cap goes on, and it even shows you an instruction of how to pull the cable out. And now the actual PCB. So make sure it is dry before you put it in. Two little kind of like pathways that the actual PCB sits on. You want to make sure that you slide that board onto them, and it just slides right in. You want to make sure that it's in all the way. Just press with your finger on the back here. Now we're going to fish that cable through. We push it in. There we go. In order to put the cable back in, this is the bottom of the cable, and that's going to be facing the actual front panel. I'm going to just press it in, and that's it. Another thing is very important. Look into that cable. All that's left to do is just to press it back in. Just pushing it in. There we go. This is basically the comprehensive inspection and the clean of the board, and now we're ready to reinstall it. Here we are, reinstalling the module. All that we need to do is we're just going to pull this harness a little bit more out. Again, there is some slack to it, so don't be afraid. Grab our plug right here, put it in, and as we're pushing it in, we're gonna grab this white tab and we're going to slide it on top over that little hump. And that's it. It clicked in. If yours doesn't have the hump, just make sure it's pressed all the way back in. And then we just basically force it back in. There will be a point where you meet a little bit of resistance. Don't be afraid. Just push it in all the way and clicks in like this. We just grab our screw. Make sure that your tabs, so this guy will click in like this. Make sure your tabs are both facing upwards. And all we're gonna do, click it in. Here we go. That's it. You installed your light control module. Now we're ready for our install. Before we do install, I do have to make a modification here that we're gonna be using the hex key for. All I'm gonna do is remove this nut here. What I'm gonna do, take these two out and just switch it 180. Now they're out, and putting them back in, make sure these are snug, can install our negative terminal. I'll be very mindful of this terminal because when I'm working with the ratcheting wrench, I want to make sure that I do not touch it because it is a live wire. It will complete the circuit, it will spark. Putting this guy on, going to tighten it. Now that it's on, I actually realized that I might need to use a washer at the end of it. Just due to the position of the actual box, it seems that safer bet would be to use a washer. There is an actual washer that comes with the box on top, acting kind of like a locking. I'm going to use it so that I'm able to tighten the bolt properly and there's not too much tension on the actual box. Just grab a 14 mil and I'm able to tighten the box. Now I'm going to put it to the power. Slide it right under that 10 mil. Okay. That seems to be it. I want to test before I do put the negative terminal on. If I use the key, oh yeah, this one actually lights up. And now that I'm verified that it is on, I will turn it off and put the negative terminal on, slapping a zip tie here. Now we can give it a test. Let's go inside and see how it works. Let's verify. So we press off. I heard a click. If anything comes on, no, the car is entirely dead. Now we're gonna press on. Came alive. And let's see. Let's hear that beautiful. Oh yeah. Nice. Turn it off. And perfect. It is off. Oh, hey, didn't see you there. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I really do hope that you've learned something in this video. I hope I gave you some suggestions, and if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to post those in the comments. And thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.